This is Capitol View.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jay Burr. A former White House correspondent is traveling to swing states and using craft beer to break down barriers. Joining us now to talk about her political discussions in swing states, Bree Jackson. Bree, we appreciate you coming on the show. It's a very interesting concept. We did see President Obama had the beer summit.
Absolutely.
So it just kind of seems to go hand in hand. Crafts and Conversations is the project.
Absolutely. Well, Jay, thank you for having me on. And
Sure.
this is an interesting concept. You know, sitting down, having a beer with someone is a simple concept. It's something that people do after work. But it's also a way just to open up the conversation about politics. It's a divisive issue that we're seeing across the country.
Right.
But what I've found on this journey, I guess I call it, because I've been to several swing states and several states, including Arkansas, is that, you know, when people feel comfortable and have that beer, feel comfortable loosening up, they feel comfortable talking about politics, and it's breaking down that barrier. They don't have their guard up about, well, what are you going to think about, you know, what I have to say. They're just like, hey, you know, you're cool, let's have a beer and let's talk some politics.
Yeah, if you can have a brew with me, then you can talk politics. I feel too, it sort of, like you said, loosens people up and it doesn't get people so, you know, worked up about the issues here. But speaking of the issues, what are some of the big ones that you're hearing from voters here in Arkansas?
Well, and the big ones are something that are things that everyone cares about, in a sense, where it's health care, it's the economy. Another one is guns. That's something that's a divisive issue that one voter I spoke with, he says he very much cares about the economy. He also cares about guns, so he's split. He feels stuck in the middle because those are two issues that Democrats feel one way, Republicans feel a different way. And so he says, well, I don't know who to vote for because I'm divided, because I just don't see, like, I feel this way about guns, I feel this way about the environment. There aren't any candidates that are speaking to me about both. So that's just one unique person that I've talked with, but the issues have just run the gamut.
Do you think too that a lot of this sort of breaks down to, you know, a lot of times everyday Americans, they don't tend to lean heavily one way or the other. I know a lot of people tend to, you know, blame us in the media for, you know, being really left or really right, but a lot of times I feel like a lot of just normal everyday folks they're right down the middle, and a lot of politicians seem to be kind of one way or the other a lot of times.
Absolutely. And people care about what affects their everyday lives. That's what I'm hearing the most. So if you're a construction worker or a contractor, that's something that I've heard people talking about. A lot of people that are supporting President Trump, in my experience on this tour, they support him because of their job experience. They say he's been good for whatever industry that they're in. On the flip side, I've also heard people say that President Trump is hurting their industry. In fact, I talked with one person that was in Kentucky, that's in the manufacturing industry, and they say that their numbers have gone down, partly because of the president's trade war, but it could be because of the unique field that he's in. But bottom line, people are really focused on the issues that affect their everyday lives, those pocketbook issues that they can say, you know, am I doing better because of someone's policy, or is my household doing worse? Right,
absolutely. And two, the one thing we were kind of talking ahead of time here, you don't hear a lot about impeachment. That seems very fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Coming from Washington, D.C., I was working there for 2.5 years, so I've been there through most of President Trump's administration. And when impeachment came up, that's all we were talking about in Washington, D.C. is impeachment is going to be a determining factor. That's what we were hearing. That's what we were thinking. So as far as I've been out on the road, I have yet to hear someone say impeachment is going to determine whether or not I vote for President Trump. They say it's something that they're not following. They're not following as closely as Washington insiders may be following. They just want the meat. They say at the end of the day, tell me if he did something wrong. If he did something wrong, he needs to be held accountable. But if this is something that politicians do all the time, and there's nothing wrong with, and you know, there's nothing actually illegal about what he's doing, then some voters are saying, you know, not that they don't care, but they're not following, and it's not going to determine whether or not they vote for a certain candidate at the end of the day.
And is it kind of one of these things too where you notice party line differentials, or here in Arkansas, everybody's fairly straightforward, like you said, you know, maybe lean a little bit one way or the other on certain issues?
I mean, I think it comes down to the person, but most people are sticking by party lines. If they're a strong Democrat, they're going to stay by those Democratic issues. But you know, Arkansas is a red state, so I am hearing you know, a lot of a different side. But I think even when it comes to identity politics, because one group that I kind of pinpointed here in Arkansas was black female voters. We talked with a Republican black female voter as well as a Democrat black female voter, and what they care about are two different issues, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, the Republican female has said, you know, my household, my pocketbook is doing well because of President Trump. I don't agree, she'll say, you know, I don't agree with, you know, some of his rhetoric, but at the end of the day, you know, my household is doing well. So that just shows, you know, people may be divided on certain issues, but when it comes down to how they vote, a lot of times people are just looking at those pocketbook issues.
Absolutely, and you know, obviously, you know, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the actual conduit here, the beers and everything here. I mean, heck, you drew the really tough straw here, it feels like here. What have you noticed, and I know you're kind of putting a little bit of a newsy twist to this as part of your project here with the economics that are involved in the brewery industry.
Well, I mean, the beer is what's just is the peg to this. It's what's bringing people together. It's breaking down the barriers, whether you're Republican, Democrat. People enjoy beer. But then it also is highlighting this growing craft beer industry. Here in Arkansas alone, it had an economic impact of over $800 million in 2018. And you know, you have your craft brew industries, or craft brew places such as Vino's and Lost 40, which is very popular here in Washington. Not in Washington.
Definitely not Washington.
I've been on the road for so long, I forget where I am. But here in Arkansas, you have, you know, Lost 40, Vino's. You have close to about 40 or 50 different craft breweries across the state. And not only are they just attracting people, tourists like myself, that want to have a good, unique craft beer, but they're bringing communities together. A lot of times they'll have, you know, events that families can come out to. They'll have bands come out. So that's something that's driving, it's becoming an economic driver for communities. And so that's really something that we're also highlighting in Crafts and Conversations, where we'll do an episode that highlights maybe the bourbon barrel aging process, which is unique in the craft beer industry. But then in the next episode, we'll say, well, here's what voters are talking about. And the first question we do tend to ask voters is, you know, what type of beer do you like? And I know one person, and I don't know if there's a correlation quite yet, but you know, one person along the way has asked me, well, you know, is there a correlation? Do IPA drinkers, are they more likely to be a Democrat or Republican? You know, I don't know if there's a correlation. I think people just
we haven't
like
tracked
beer.
that information yet.
But you know, with that aside, it's also some fun in this. It's, you know, sitting down, having a beer, enjoying a conversation, highlighting, you know, that economic driver, and then also having the serious conversation about the 2020 election.
Fantastic, and I guess we'd be remiss too if we didn't ask, you know, what's been the favorite so far?
I'm a stout girl when it comes to. You know, I have to admit, you know, I'm a dark stout person, and then I also enjoy beers with a high ABV. So, so I'm usually you know, a one beer and then slowly sip that. But I mean, there's some great beers that, you know, I've had here in Arkansas and across the state. So, you know, I don't necessarily have a favorite. I think any beer is a good beer.
You can't go wrong, really. I mean, for me personally, I'm not a big IPA guy, but I know Stone's Throw Amadeus. It's one of my things. Lost 40 with the Honeybach is kind of one of my personal faves here, at least from the local scene here. Where can people find your project here, Crafts and Conversations?
So you can go to Crafts. If you go to Facebook, you can go also on Twitter and YouTube. So if you're looking on YouTube, it's under Crafts and Conversations. And then if you're looking on Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram, you'll find it under my page, which is Positively Bree. But if you also look up the hashtag Crafts and Conversations, you'll find it on all those social media networks. I hope you guys follow along, because it's been an interesting journey so far, and we're not going to stop. 2020 is, you know, that 2020 election is still a ways away, so we're going to hear a lot from people in other states. Fantastic.
So there you have it, guys. Go check out the project here. Bree, we certainly appreciate you coming in here. Absolutely here. We might steal the idea here. On
you should.
Don't tell anybody here.